So, brings up Gavin Gallaher, another freshman, and all he's done the last 3 times, home run, run-scoring double, walk. Takes strike 1 on a fastball from DeCastro. Blue chip recruit has announced himself loudly in his tourney debut. Launches! Left field! Toward the wall! Good night!
Welcome, college baseball fans. I'm joined by 2024 Chapel Hill Regional Most Outstanding Player, Gavin Gallaher. You heard the audio, the Grand Slam against Long Island. Gavin, thank you so much for taking the time to come on.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate you having me here.
Now, let's start with talking about that regional. Obviously, if anyone was watching the ACC, they should have already been familiar with you. But it was on national stage, your kind of coming out party. What was that moment like? Do you remember it, or did you just kind of black out?
Yeah, I definitely blacked out, but I just remember like seeing the ball hit off the scoreboard, and then just seeing my teammates all around home plate. It was, it's like every kid's dream when you're growing up. You put yourself in that situation, and so that was unreal. That feeling.
That game in particular, obviously you had a great weekend entirely, but that game in particular, you had that, they said it right in the audio, double, and then a home run already in that game. What was working so well that you were able to see the ball so well that day?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of how baseball goes. Everybody is going to be on some days, and I was just fortunate enough that day I was on. I felt like I was seeing the ball great. I was doing a good job of being slow in the box and keeping my head still. And so I just felt like, yeah, after my first at-bat, I knew his best pitch was his changeup. And so after that first at-bat, I saw fastball, I saw changeup. I was ready to go. And
what about that atmosphere? I mean, you can hear it over the audio. The Bosch was rocking.
Yeah, it really was. That was something that I had never experienced before. Obviously, we had played in Charlotte the weekend before at the ACC tournament, 11,000 people. But to have that environment at the Bosch with those fans, everybody cheering for you, it was different.
Yeah, and you had quite the weekend. 5 for 17, 2 doubles, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs. I mean, you had a really good freshman season, but that accounted for almost a third of your extra base hits on the season.
Yeah. I think early on, especially when I first started getting at bats, it was a lot of contact, it was a lot of singles, and so yeah, that there's not a lot of slugging, but it definitely came through at the end.
Yeah, you were a really important player throughout the whole season. I think we did a deep dive on you, and I knew that you might push for some chances, but based on the depth that you guys had, I didn't expect you to play as much as you did as a freshman. Ultimately, there were some struggles for some other players, some injuries, and you were able to get in there, and you played a little bit of left field as well, but you were predominantly at third base, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Is that where you're still kind of playing this fall, or you kind of turning into a little bit of a utility guy?
They've been moving us all around. I've been on the infield throughout the fall, but they've been working all of us infielders, all 3 spots at second, short, and third. So looking forward to that, moving around a little bit again.
That's exciting. We talked about you playing a little bit in left field. What was it like playing in that outfield? Obviously, you would have taken one of the outfield spots when you were out there, but with Casey Cook and Vance Honeycutt and Anthony D'Onofrio, I mean that was the best outfield in the ACC.
Yeah, I agree with you. When I was out there playing, it was actually because D'Onofrio was dealing with a hamstring injury. So that's what first got me out there. When he came back, I definitely did not belong there anymore once he was back. So
Yeah, it was good to see that you got playing time still at third base. You were a lot of fun to watch. You ended up hitting over 300 as a freshman. You know the ACC is supposed to be hard, right, Gavin?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't easy.
You and Luke did really, really well all season
Mhm.
long. Obviously, Luke was the main catcher from day one, and it was really cool to see that balance because it was a very senior laden team or experience, with Casey and Vance being draft eligible. But let's talk a little bit about the postseason a little bit more. You obviously had your magical moment. And then that ends up getting overshadowed a bit because Vance Honeycutt decided he was going to be the most clutch player on the planet for like 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a guy like that on your team, you don't expect your moment to last very long. He just did what we all knew he could do. Like he had done it all season. But when you get into the playoffs, like you said, it's the national stage, so it just kind of everybody was watching at that point. He was doing the same thing he did all season. He's just getting it done when it mattered, and he was, getting it done when we needed it most. We definitely would not have, we would not have made the same run without him. You look at the Saturday game 2, we beat LSU. His 2 home runs, I think, if I remember the score correctly, his 2 home runs beat them alone. And then you go West Virginia the next weekend, walk-off home run. Next day, he scores both of our runs that won us the super regional. But not even just that on offense. Like he got it done on offense, but just being like a lockdown center fielder all season is something that like you can't take for granted because there were many times throughout the season that he's tracking balls down that most guys in center field is an extra base hit.
Yeah, I think that's going to take some getting used to in the ACC next year because there were a couple of players like that were really good defensively that were making major league level plays and making them look routine to a point where you're going to have to reevaluate the standard. And Vance is definitely one of them. Is unfortunately, that's not very common for a center fielder to chase down those balls and make it look easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to go to Omaha as a freshman, but it wasn't your first time there, right? You've been to Omaha before, right?
Yeah, that was a cool story. I wasn't expecting that to take off the same way that it did, but I have a good hometown friend that me and him had played baseball together pretty much our entire lives, and we were close enough that I think I was 7, close enough at the time that him and his dad were going to Omaha to watch Carolina play and said, hey, why don't we invite Gavin and his dad? So that was a cool experience. And experiencing it again as a player, it just kind of shows you like the 2 different sides of it. So it's really cool.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I think the question was like, what would 7-year-old Gavin have thought if he knew he was going to play there in the future?
Yeah, that's like probably wouldn't have believed you at the time. I think that's when I was playing, still playing like multiple different sports. It wasn't really bought in on one thing. I loved playing baseball still, and I was good for a 7-year-old, but I don't think I was ever really even thinking about playing college baseball at that point.
Yeah, and you got to see Carolina in the College World Series too, so that's, I mean, even cool the origin story with Carolina there. So you went straight from Omaha. You apparently didn't get enough baseball this spring, so you went straight to the Cape Cod League, and this lineup didn't happen too much, I think, before somebody left, but at one point you were batting 7th behind Drew Burris, R.J. Austin, Anthony Martinez, Ethan Petrie, and Easton Carmichael. And that, I mean, the Cape teams are loaded already, but that lineup is extra loaded. What was that like, batting 7th right behind all that murderer's row?
Yeah, that was a ton of fun. not only like those guys playing with the guys as baseball players, but just getting to know them like off the field, hanging out with them. They're all great guys, even more than they are great baseball players. And so it was just always fun. Like you said, Cape teams are always loaded, and you go to the Cape as a pitcher, you're going to face good hitters, but to have to face all those guys in a row is pretty crazy. We always made jokes that like if we all transferred to the same college, it'd be the greatest college team ever. So
Yeah, I mean, you
that
had
was
three guys coming back from that were on Team
Mhm.
USA alone, and apologies to Wahiwa Aloy, who I forgot in the initial rundown, but he had like 11 home runs on the year, or 8, something like that,
Yep.
on the summer. I mean, unbelievable. I was tuning in to you guys just to see the lineup. I was like, I don't even care about the pitching. And then, unfortunately, with the way the summers work, some guys got their work in and it was time to go home. And so we didn't get that lineup a whole lot. But you guys were the best team from start to finish. And you were a big part of that going down the stretch. It felt like there was a couple of times, and I think I tweeted about it, that you were getting an RBI like every night. Even if you weren't getting a hit, you were still getting an RBI.
Yeah, I had actually I think that's when I first really started following you on Twitter, which is kind of crazy to think about. But um that was a little streak of just like you said, when you have those guys hitting in front of you, you're gonna have guys on base when you come up to hit. So I was just coming up with runners in scoring position and just doing my job to drive those guys in. So
And I like how we're talking about this as if you didn't have a murderer's row at UNC a bit too, like we with Honeycutt and Cook and Parks
Mhm.
Harbor, and Luke. But yeah, it's really cool to see the summer league stuff because you get to play with different players. And did you bond with anyone specifically that that you were able to hang out with, or?
Yeah, so me and Vahiva, we were actually roommates for the time that we were there together. So that was really cool. Me and him, yeah, we were pretty close. And then um, one of my good friends now is Phoenix Call from UCLA. He was a big player for that team too. Um, and
I think he
then, like
played.
you said,
I think Phoenix Call played in every game, if I recall correctly.
he did. Yes, I'm pretty sure that was his some sort of Cape record or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. He played in every single game. But um, yeah, I mean that goes to show you too. Like he might not have played a ton in the spring, but he showed up this summer and he put his work in. He showed up every single day. It's hard to find guys like that that can play every single day throughout the entire summer. And so for him to go out and do that shows a lot about himself as well, which I thought was really cool. It's something that I kind of respect about him.
Yeah, I love being able to watch the Cape Cod League, especially when they've gotten the broadcast better because I'm exposed to new players. I didn't know who Phoenix Call was, and then because I was watching you guys with that lineup, I was like, "Oh man, who's this? Who's this quick shortstop?" I think he's playing some other positions as well, but it's really cool to see. But do you get up there in time to go to Fenway to work out, or because I know that might have been tricky on the getting there from after Omaha.
Yeah, so I got there on a Friday, and then Monday. Well, I got there on Friday, and they told me that day that I was, going to be on a bus at 5 in the morning on Monday to go to Fenway. So I did. Fortunately, I got to make that trip. Which, growing up, I was a little bit. I know it's mixed, but I was a little bit of an Orioles fan, and then I was a little bit of a Boston fan, which that's hard to do, but I did it. So
And kids.
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, being a Red Sox fan, that was a really cool feeling. I'd never been to Fenway before, and then like my first time at Fenway, being on the field, taking BP, doing IO stuff like that. That was an awesome experience. I'll never forget that.
Yeah, that's the question I'm always asking any of the Cape guys I'm not sure they made it in time, but I was like, let me see if he did, because that's a really cool experience to talk about. Were you high school teammates with Macon Winslow?
Yeah, me and Macon both played at Pro 5 together. Yeah. I think he was there for 2 years.
He was bragging about hitting one over the Green Monster with his last swing. So You know,
Yeah, I'm sure he did. I forget. I think that his team was there like the session right after ours, so I didn't get to see him there. But we did. We played high school together for 2 years. He was our, pretty much everyday catcher. We had actually George Baker, who's at Louisville. He was also there on that same team. So them splitting time and both of them were in the lineup every day because, but me and him, yeah, we were close. We played travel ball together too. So it's really cool now to see kind of each other playing both in the ACC, both like at our D1 dream level, like what we always talk about.
Yeah, it seems like it's a pretty small baseball community in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
After one of the Team USA scrimmages, I wanted to interview both Luke and Kyle Johnson of Duke, and somebody thought that was weird because they were like, "Who do you work for that you're interviewing both Duke and UNC?" I was like, "It's an ACC thing," but Luke and Kyle, I was like, "What was it like catching a right?" He's like, "Oh, it was like Luke was like it was old times because KJ was on my travel ball team," and I'm like, "Okay,
yep.
Well." Everybody's connected, and I'm sure that makes the rivalry a bit more fun when you guys are playing each other in ACC play because you've got friends and you can talk a little fun trash on the side.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a lot of fun, and you're still at the end of the day, you're still friends. So they come up, they're hitting in a situation. You're like, well, we could give up a hit right here, it'd be fine. You're like rooting for your guy, but you're rooting for your team. You're stuck in the middle. You're looking for like the best possible situation where your team wins and your friend does good. It's
always complicated. So I want to talk about I saw an article from Grace Nugent of Inside Carolina where she talked about Coach Forbes has talked about the depth of this team, and that even guys like you and Luke who are returning starters will have to earn your spot. Does that kind of team message, not just internally, but to the media as well, does that get you fired up and even more eager to work?
Yeah, I think that's what it's all about. He's always bringing in, he's always bringing in what is best for the team. And so he's going to go out there and get the best players possible. And so when new guys come in, when freshmen come in, like they're here for a reason too. It's because these coaches have evaluated them. They know that they're good players. They know that they have a chance to start just as much as I might have a chance to start. And so it's why you have to show up every single day ready to work because nothing's given here at UNC.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's a lot of options. They're moving you guys around at different positions, which is also good for the depth. But what are the vibes coming into fall practice? You've got a lot of turnover from some of the older guys. So you've got some new faces. Obviously, you lose somebody like Vance Honeycutt, Alberto Ozuna, Jackson Vanderbrake, Casey Cook. So you've got vibes, I'm sure, are high, but they've got to be a little bit different, right?
Oh, they definitely are. And I think that goes with just any new team. Like you're going to lose guys, you're going to gain guys. And so that's actually something that Coach Forbes likes to remind us of is you have to be in the present because, we're only going to be this team for one time. Like come next year, it's going to be a different team. We're not going to be this team again. So I think the big thing is just building those relationships with those new guys. Welcoming, wow, cut that out. Welcoming them into the program, kind of showing them the ropes a little bit and just so they can get comfortable. Because once these guys get comfortable, they're going to go and they're going to do their thing. Like I said, they're here for a reason. And so that's just kind of the culture we have here is that you have to show up, you have to put the work in. And if you don't, it's going to show and somebody's going to take your spot.
Yep. And like I mentioned, there are a lot of new faces, both some new freshmen, and then you've also got some good transfer guys coming in. Have you been able to see anyone stand out in particular?
Yeah. I think everybody has performed well. And there's always, guys that you don't see because you're not working with them every single day. But couple of the guys coming in, Tyson Bass came from NC Wesleyan. He's got good bat, lots of power. He reminds me of like a right-handed Anthony D'Onofrio. And then Rom Kellis from Flodar. He came in athletic, lots of bat speed, lots of power, same thing. And these are just guys like we talked about. They're just trying to bring in to build the best team possible. And, these guys are what's going to do that. And as long as everybody buys in and everybody's pulling for the team, like that's all that matters.
And you've also got an old face returning from injury with Hunter Stokely, and that's got to be a big boost as well because, he gets to play again, and he's a big bat that can contribute at first base.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that because obviously I got all of last fall to play with him, but his injury was unfortunately pretty early in the spring season. So I'm excited to see him back out there because I know that he was obviously like really bummed about last year to not be able to go. So yeah, I'm excited for him to be back, and I think that he's a big bat in the lineup, but I think even more importantly, he's really good first baseman.
Yeah. Who do you think is going to have a breakout season in the spring? If you could name one or two guys who might have a breakout season, kind of like you and Luke did to an extent last year as freshmen, but is there anyone under the radar that might have a breakout season for UNC?
That's a tough one.
I imagine there's a couple of pitchers, but I don't know how much you've been able to see of the pitchers.
No, yeah, I wouldn't call it a breakout because he performed last year in the spring as well. But I think Aiden Houck is a name that is really going to jump this year. He's got really, really good stuff. He's got really good build. He's got all the tools you need. And I think this year it's going to be even more evident than last year that he's got that experience now under his belt too. So I think that's going to be a name that people are going to notice even more this year.
That's a great name, and I believe he got drafted and decided to come back. So that's huge. He's an arm that I'm excited to see. And there's a number of guys that from your recruiting class I'm looking forward to seeing their improvement from year one to year two. You have a new coach as well from Liberty. Is Scott Jackson?
Yeah.
And what has he brought to the team? Because it's really cool. He's got head coaching experience. He also was able, a couple of guys followed him over in the transfer portal. But what is he bringing to the table for the team?
Yeah, Coach Jackson's been awesome. He's done a lot already. He's working mainly position players, but he does a lot of base running and a lot of defensive stuff. Coach Weers Bicky, he's maintained, he stayed as our main hitting coach, but they've done such a good job, I've noticed, working together through this first month. I guess adding a new coach, because it used to be, Coach Weers he's like the main position guy all around. And so now adding another coach to supplement him and to work together and them just like working together, I think that's been awesome. It's definitely helped a lot because, when you have one main coach that's looking for position guys, Coach Forbes helping out too, but having that extra set of eyes, it really helps out when you have such a big roster during the fall.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So is there anything in particular you're working on in the fall? I know you started to get really comfortable towards the end of the season and like we talked about, starting to hit for a little bit more power. Is there anything in your game that you're working on developing in particular? Obviously, all around you want to see improvement, but if there's one thing you can improve, what are you looking at?
I think so far been focused a lot on, like we talked about, driving the ball, more power, but particularly to, all sides of the field. I've always been able to pull the ball, always been able to, little juice to the pull side. But I think making a couple tweaks and, changing maybe some approach things mentally has really helped me so far to be able to drive the ball to all fields. And so I'm hoping to continue to grow on that and hopefully, see that kind of more throughout the fall and into the spring.
Love that. Yeah, I'm excited to see that as well. So your father went to Wake Forest and was a coach there, and yet you still chose UNC. And obviously, I'm sure, being the recruit that you were, you had options from all the North Carolina schools. But what made you choose Carolina? And it sounds like you had an earlier enjoyment of Carolina with your Omaha story. So I'm curious if that's been a lifelong Carolina dream.
Yeah. So it actually hasn't, but so it really started was that friend that I went to Omaha with. He was a huge Carolina fan, and so we'd go to some games. He'd take me some basketball games, some baseball games. So I'd been around Carolina a lot, but my sister actually went to NC State. My dad went to Wake Forest. So there was a lot of mixed opinions, but at the end of the day, they were all just pulling for me to go to what was the best fit for me. And so UNC I loved the coaching staff. Coach Forbes actually recruited me when Coach Fox was still there. So I had a good relationship with Coach Forbes from the start. And they're just all awesome. So I really enjoyed the coaching staff. And then getting on campus is beautiful. There's it's got a small feel to it, but just all around it's awesome, and it's close to home, which was really important for me. Family's important, and so I couldn't picture myself being more than a 1-day trip from home. And so all those things kind of just put Carolina in the right spot. And I guess also education is pretty important too. So that kind of the UNC degree. Yeah. All those things together just kind of put Carolina at the top of my list.
Yeah, and I've had a couple of guys from North Carolina on the show already, and I bring it up, but you kind of have to have an opinion even as a kid on the rivalry, right, with Duke and UNC basketball. So were you always a UNC guy? Because I noticed that you didn't mention anyone went to Duke.
No, absolutely not. That is the one thing. I might not have always been the biggest UNC fan, but I never liked Duke. So that is something that hasn't changed and will never change.
So last thing I'll ask before we head into some final fun questions, but what excites you the most about UNC baseball heading into this fall?
I think I'd say having that experience from Omaha, all those guys coming back, we know what it takes now to get there, and we know that feeling of what it's like being there. And so taking that, channeling it into these other guys that are new here at UNC, pushing each other, and just kind of, knowing what our goal is for next season and knowing what it takes to get there. I'm excited to see how everybody takes that and how, everybody gets to work.
Absolutely. It's going to be an exciting fall. I'm hoping to see both your guys' scrimmages, but we're going to move into some of the fun stuff now.
Okay.
Some team superlatives. Who's looking like the team class clown right
now? I think that's my boy Francesco Capucci. He's always got some sort of energy, and he's the energy guy in the team. Whenever practice might be a little slow or something, he does a good job of making sure everybody gets the energy up.
You laughed like you were ready for that one. You were like, I'm ready. All right. Who's your glue guy? Who's the guy who's holding the whole team together and always in the gym working hard and kind of a baseball rat?
Yeah, I can go a couple of different ways. I'd say you got Jackson Vanderbrake, he actually is right now still around. We're waiting on. Unfortunately, we're still waiting for some NCAA eligibility stuff. And Alex Madera, they're both guys that are older, have more experience, and they they kind of make sure everybody's set straight.
Yeah, and that would be a big boost. It's good to have his leadership around one way or the other. I know he was a captain last year, so that would be a big boost for you guys. Which also brings me into the leaders. I would imagine that's a couple of the guys that you just mentioned.
Yeah, Vanderbrake, he's awesome. He's vocal. He leads by example. He does it all. And also Jake Knapp. He's another guy that we lost last year, unfortunately. He would have been a big part of our pitching staff, and he's another guy that does a great job of keeping the focus right, making sure guys aren't doing things wrong, and he knows what the culture is at UNC and what it takes.
You're going to have a very long baseball career, we hope. But this question is about what would your dream job be outside of baseball?
So yeah, that's that's tough. I've always said that I don't really have a preference on what I do. I just want to stay in athletics. So I'd probably big league coaching job would probably be my dream job if I wasn't playing.
I like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's not bad. We can work with that. Hopefully you can do that after you've had a long, professional career and everything. So, let's say I'm coming to Chapel Hill. What is the go-to food spot?
Franklin Street's awesome. So you can go anywhere on Franklin Street, but my suggestion would be Sup Dogs. They've got some great messy food if that's what you want. So great hamburgers, great hot dogs.
Love that. I am into that, so that works. All right, who was the toughest pitcher that you faced in the ACC last year?
You could go with the easy answer of Chase Burns. I don't think anybody would argue that one. Yeah, he's the one that jumps off the page to me. I think you can go back and watch some of my at-bats and say the same thing.
Yeah, my favorite game in person last year might have been your guys' game in the ACC tournament. It felt like 3 different games. You guys had to weather the Chase Burns start, and you did, and then Vance Honeycutt hits the double to the gap, and it looks like you guys are gonna finish it up. And then a couple innings later, Nick Kurtz hits it to the exact same spot, and it was just incredible because it was like all the stars showed up, and I didn't even complain that I was up at the ballpark till 2 a.m. that night. It was such a blast. Unfortunately, y'all didn't come out on top, but yeah, you had to face Chase Burns twice. Did you face him the first time in Winston-Salem?
I did, yes. That game did not go my way, but luckily I had a better approach second game.
Yeah, it did go your team's way though, if I recall correctly.
Yes, it did.
I think 4 home runs off of him, which not many teams did last year. So very impressive. Your favorite ACC ballpark besides your own, and I'm curious on this one because when I've asked non-UNC guys, UNC and Clemson seems to be the top 2, and you can't use UNC since it's yours. So
yeah. So we didn't travel too much last year, but from what I've seen around, and I would still go UVA. UVA's pretty top class. I think they have the second best because obviously I think Chapel Hill's best stadium in the ACC, but
I would be hard pressed to disagree with that. I mean, I also love the fact that the Bosch has, and I brought this up with a couple other guys on the show, so people who are listening to another one of my interviews and hear me bring this up, but I love the fact that the Bosch has a museum. In the concourse. There's a number of ACC teams that have enough history to do that, and I don't know why they haven't copied that because it's so cool to go in there and look at all the, I was going back because I remember watching some North Carolina teams from like 06, 07 that went to the College World Series and lost to Oregon State, and those names all of a sudden that I like buried in my consciousness and were all of a sudden back, and I'm like 15 years old again. So
yeah, I think I agree with you. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, and it's obviously a beautiful park. But yeah, UVA is the one I go to most often because it's my closest one. But yeah, it's the Bosch is definitely up there. But that's all I've got for you, Gavin. Do you have anything else you wanna mention before we say goodbye?
I just say thank you for having me on. It's been awesome.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. We could keep talking for a while, but I'm going to let you go. But anyway, this has been another episode of ACC Central. We're going to have another one in a couple of days. For Gavin Gallaher, I'm Monty Taylor, and go Tar Heels.
Yes, sir. Go Tar Heels.